Move towards their seats. Silence all cell phones. I'll call the third meeting of the House Standing Committee on Banking and Insurance to order at this time. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Representative All. Here. Representative Ballman. Present. Representative Bray. Present. Representative Camuel.
Here.
Representative Klines.
Here.
Representative Duvall.
Here.
Representative Gooch. Representative Gordon.
Yes.
Representative Grossberg. Representative Hampton.
Here, sir.
Representative Hancock.
Here.
Representative Heverin. Representative Lewis.
Here.
Representative McPherson.
Here.
Representative Rudy. Representative Smith. Representative Lockett.
Here.
Representative Pollock.
Here.
Chair Meredith.
Yes, sir. We do have a quorum and are duly constituted to do our business today. I do have at least one member that has guest. Representative Pollock, would you like to introduce your guest?
I sure would, Mr. Chairman. It's exciting for me, an honor and a privilege to welcome our 4-H'ers from Marion County here in the green. So just please make him feel welcome.
Do any other members have guests that they'd like to introduce before we get started with the business? Seeing none, we are going to go out of order on the agenda. I like to give courtesy to our members who are not members of this committee if they have bills before us. So Representative Bowling, if you and your guests would like to come up, we'll call House Bill 701 at this time. Please, when you come to the table, introduce yourselves for the record, and then you all may proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Vice Chairman Lockett and committee. I am State Representative Adam Bowling, representing the 87th Legislative District. And with me today, we have...
Hi, Ashley Gunn. Thank you. Hi, Ashley Gunn with Coinbase. I oversee our state policy affairs.
I believe House Bill 701 does have a committee substitute.
It
Representative
does.
Bowling.
Yes.
Got a motion on the sub from Representative McPherson, a second from Representative Bray. If you would tell us just a little bit about what the sub does before we adopt that with a voice vote.
Sure. Several of you were on this committee, or most of you were on this committee last year. I had a bill that addressed three major sections of that bill. Was the right to hold and transact, the right to mine, and then treating it as a commodity and not a security. We had some language changes from last year on the mining section of the bill. I tried to kind of slim that down. Really, we wanted to go ahead and move forward with it. We couldn't come up with language that we all agreed on it, so we decided just to take that out altogether. So this bill this year does not deal with mining or anything like that. So that section is gone. And then I do believe there was one other sentence that was added in section number 2. In this section, shall not require any person to accept digital assets for payment for legal goods or services. So it does not require them to do so. Anybody's free to do it if they so please, but does not require them to do so in any way. Just to clarify, I felt like it already said that in the bill, but we did want to clarify that section.
Thank you, Representative Bowling. Any questions about the sub before we adopt it? Seeing none, all in favor of adopting the sub, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The substitute is adopted. You may go on with the rest of your presentation now, Representative Bowling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as you well know, the age of digital assets and blockchain technology is upon us. In the United States and across the world, there are several $1 trillion in digital assets currently being held. In the state of Kentucky, nearly 500,000 individuals own a digital asset of some kind. House Bill 701 aims to modernize and move Kentucky forward with regards to digital assets and blockchain technology by protecting monetary freedom and preventing outdated regulations from stifling innovation and commerce. Mr. Chair, I'm going to go through, there's 5 sections to this bill. The first section, it's about 3 pages of the 7-page bill, and it just deals with definitions. These definitions will help govern this technology as we move forward. Section 2 deals with an individual's right to hold digital assets and transact using those digital assets. Section 3, we start to get a little more technical with the blockchain protocol and the individual technical mechanisms of governing how it works. We also, in this section, give full authority to the Attorney General to prosecute any fraud or abuse under Kentucky's current consumer protection laws. Section 4 reiterates that we are going to treat this as a commodity and not a security. And so that's sections 4 and 5 deal with that.
I've got a motion on the bill from Representative Bauman. Motion on the bill is amended by the committee substitute by Representative Bauman, a second by Representative Pollock. I do have some questions. Representative All has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have two quick questions. There's a lot of debate at the federal level right now about whether or not this is a security or a commodity. Mm-hmm. Could you tell us why we're getting out in front and trying to figure out if we're going to follow the federal regulators' lead and why we're going ahead and preactively defining it as a commodity here in Kentucky?
Sure. I mean, from my point of view, they've been having that debate for 6, 7, 8 years up there now. So we're basically saying what other states have said, and let's take the lead on it, that we need to treat this as a commodity and not a security. And so that's what we are doing in this bill.
Okay. My other question is, Section 3, does this prohibit local cities and counties from enacting any zoning there if they want to do so?
Section 3 does not. That was in the old, that was before the committee sub. That Section 3 that you're probably looking at, that's been taken out altogether. So that all that language under what you're seeing there, it is gone completely in the committee substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions from members of the committee? Erica, Representative Hancock.
Yes, I'd like to ask a question. I know, just like everybody else that I talk to about this, is I know just enough to be dangerous. Being an insurance and financial background, we worry a lot about money laundering. We worry a lot about the autonomy of these things and making sure that we protect our consumers with these issues. Why do you choose it as a commodity? I know probably for regulation purposes, but to me, it seems more of a security. Can you explain what your defense is on that?
Yeah, I'm going to let our resident expert answer that question, but that's a very good question. Thank you.
So I think at the federal level, this conversation is happening, in real time between the commodity and the security. I would say, technically the bill actually doesn't sort of define that it's explicitly a commodity. I think there are crypto activities that we want to clarify are not a security. We're not necessarily defining that it is a commodity, but we are making sure it's known that it's not a security. And I would just highlight that, there was active litigation happening at the federal level that was over certain pieces of what this bill sort of specifies, which is staking as a security, which is an infrastructure software provider or an infrastructure software system that Coinbase and others provide. At the federal level, the Securities Exchange Commission was claiming that we were violating securities laws by doing that. That case, as of Friday, has been completely dismissed. That is no longer an issue. The SEC has righted that wrong, and so they have, in doing that, they sort of have taken away the securities violation piece. Now, they aren't coming out completely saying that it's a commodity, but they are saying that it's not a security. And that's exactly what this bill would do as well.
Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I guess I'll use this as a comment, and then you can answer too. But to make it simple for the committee on clarifying security and commodity, securities have to be reported. So if you have if you're doing any investments, as a representative here does finances, you have to file if you do private placements, if you do securities. The problem with the past administration was they wanted to identify this as a security to stop it. It wasn't to enhance it or to move it forward. They found a way to stop crypto from moving. So they made it a security, even though they had the Treasury Department over the currency arguing with them, saying it should be a commodity and be held liable through the currency. So it was a battle between even departments in the federal side. But to make it really clear, that's what this administration will be doing, in my opinion, because it's crypto friendly. The president has placed someone over SEC that has a mindset to make this work, to regulate it. We're not getting in front of anything. We're basically given a definition that when this gets regulated, that we'll be able to start bringing companies in and start dealing with this industry. So I think it's an important bill. Wouldn't hurt for Kentucky to be in the lead in something rather than waiting for other states to tell us what needs to be done. So I appreciate the sponsor doing this. I've been looking into this for the last couple of years and talking to the chairman. I think it's important that we have a structure, but to really bring it down and understand the security and commodity, understand that it was trying to be blocked. So they used the security. They filed lawsuits against this company here, against several crypto companies to block them. But now that we see that the new administration's already dropped the lawsuits. They're dropping them as they've been fighting. They're going through them individually as they drop them. But it's to make a change in the river, so be it. That the stream will go the same direction, that we'll be able to trade in this as a commodity. You buy one coin, you would have to file with the SEC in a security because you was buying it as a security, like you're buying a stock. That's what the problem was. The paperwork wouldn't have filled this room. So if you want to stop something, cause that. So I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, to elaborate so much, but I think that's the simplest way to put it. And if she wants to reiterate or follow up with it, I'd appreciate it. I was just giving my viewpoint and what my understanding of it was.
Yeah, no, I think Representative, I think you hit the nail on the head there. We completely agree with that assessment. And all of those conversations are happening at the federal level. And when that does get determined as sort of what the life cycle of a digital asset looks like, whether it be a security or a commodity, then that determines who will regulate that. And I want to be clear, right now Coinbase is a federally regulated business under FinCEN. We have a money services business. We have to comply with all AML KYC laws. But the confusion comes because we don't have a markets regulator, whether that be the Securities Exchange Commission or the Commodities Future Trading Commission. And this is where this securities versus commodities conversation comes into play. And that when that does get settled, which I do fully believe that Congress will pass some sort of market structure clarity legislation here in the near term, then we will be able to get a markets regulator, and then that will provide a lot more certainty to the market as to how digital assets should be regulated. But this is an opportunity for Kentucky, to Representative Smith's point, to be on the leading front of this and sort of taking a step before, and showing the rest of the country.
Representative Lockett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, you actually just answered part of my question, so I just want to make a quick comment. One, I think part of the reason why we are doing this bill now is to lay the groundwork for when the feds do decide exactly what crypto is. As an advisor that deals with this all the time, I'm going to lean more towards the side that it is a security because there's the opportunity for loss. So if there's an opportunity for loss, then in my book, it's a security. I can also see the other side, so I'm kind of anxious to see what the feds say on this. But I'm very glad for the bill because it does put Kentucky in a place to where once the feds decide what they're going to call it, we're ready to go. So thank you, Mr. Sponsor.
Any other questions for other members of the committee? I do have a motion and a second on the bill as amended by the committee substitute. I do believe correct. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Representative All,
Yes.
Representative Ballman,
Yes.
Representative Bray,
Yes.
Representative Camuel,
May I explain my vote?
Go right ahead, Representative.
Thank you. I'm going to pass today. I'm still trying to fully understand what you've presented, but also hearing from my colleagues up here on whether it should be regulated as a security or a commodity. So I'm just going to pass and keep looking into it. So thank you.
Representative Klein's,
Yes.
Representative Duvall,
Yes.
Representative Gooch.
Yes.
Representative Gordon.
Yes.
Representative Grossberg.
Permission to explain my vote.
Go right ahead.
It's clear to me that crypto suffers from the same wave particle duality of light, that it behaves like a security when you want it to be a commodity and a commodity when you want it to be a security. And I'm not clear how it's going to come down at the end 10, 15, 20 years from now when we're looking back. But I echo the sentiment of Representative Lockett that at least this puts Kentucky in the forefront and prepares us to deal with however it is finally disposed of. So I am a yes with reservations.
Representative Hampton.
Yes.
Representative Hancock.
I'd like to explain my vote.
Go ahead, Representative.
I will be a yes vote. You did a great job, both of you all, easing my concerns. As of last night, I know enough, again, to be dangerous, but not know enough. I think that getting on the front of it, the regulation side of it, is going to be extremely important for our consumer protection piece. I know everybody in here that's in banking and finance, every year we hear news stories of different ways to launder money. To me, this is a vehicle that seems like it could be easy to do. And I just want to make sure that we have those conversations. Don't politicize them. Let's not put each other on each different side, but what's best for the consumers in Kentucky. So I'm a yes.
Representative Heverin.
Yes.
Representative Lewis.
Yes.
Representative Lockett.
Yes.
Representative McPherson.
Yes.
Representative Pollock.
Yes.
Representative Rudy. Representative Smith.
Yes, quickly explain my vote, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Again, I'd like the members to understand, we're talking about 500,000 of our constituents that are in this. And understand there's been a shift of wealth. The shift comes from our deposits in our banks. So I think it's important to this committee that we follow through on each meeting figuring this out. I'm not saying I understand it all. There is a black market. There is troubles in it. Let's regulate it and let's get it right. That's the only thing that I encourage us to do. But I'm a yes vote, Mr. Chairman.
Chair Meredith.
Yes. House Bill 701, as amended by the House Committee Substitute, does pass with favorable expression. Same shit on the House floor. Thank you all for your presentation and for being here with us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee members.
Representative Bray, if you'd start heading towards the table, I do have a couple of introductions that we need to take care of before you get started. Representative Heverin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for indulging me being a few minutes late with my guests and letting me introduce them. Today with me, I have Reagan Meredith, Addison Meredith, and Peyton Meredith. Today, their grandfather is Senator Steve Meredith, but I'm super excited to have them. They are very much like my nieces, so please welcome them to Frankfort if you see them. And if Reagan asks you to sign her history book, please do so. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We have the Grayson County Meredith girls here this week. I think the Edmondson girls may be here next week. So good to have you all with us. I also do have a quick introduction as well. Want to just welcome the members of the Professional Insurance Agents of Kentucky who are here for their Advocacy Day at the Capitol today. I spoke with them this morning over in the Senate chambers, and they've joined us for the meeting as well. So welcome to the B&I committee. Representative Bray, you've got House Bill 416. If you would introduce yourself, and then your guests introduce themselves for the record, and then we'll proceed with the testimony.
Representative Josh Bray, House District 71.
My name is Amy Phelps. I'm with the National Insurance Crime Bureau.
Dustin Miller, retained legislative agent for State Farm Insurance.
Well, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, thank you for letting us come and present House Bill 416 today, which deals with no fault or personal injury protection coverage on your auto insurance policy. The PIP statutes currently permit medical providers to charge whatever they want for whatever service they want to provide, and presumes whatever charges they submit for a service are medically necessary or are reasonable. There is no process in existing PIP statutes that defines how one goes about proving what is a reasonable charge. If a patient or their auto carrier wants to challenge excessive medical charges, the options are attempt to negotiate with a provider who has little incentive to do so, pay a lesser amount it believes is reasonable, and risk getting sued for bad faith. The existing statutory framework has created a scenario ripe for abuse. I have Amy Phelps with the National Insurance Crime Bureau to discuss specific examples of abuse and fraud in Kentucky.
Representative Bray, before we go to her, if you could, we do have a substitute on this bill as well. I got a motion on the sub from Representative Pollock, a second from Representative McPherson. Could you tell us just a little bit about the differences in the sub versus what was in the original bill?
Sure. So the differences are we changed the death benefit, funeral. We increased the PIP benefits for funeral expenses to $5,000, and we increased the $500 for weekly wages. Those hadn't been done since 1975. Prohibit balance billing for consumers or impairing consumer credit, and
Increase the 45 days to 180 days on billing, as well as specifically providing a carve-out if there's a direction under the PIP benefits. And there was some additional language to make it clear, Mr. Chairman, I think at your direction, that we are adopting the fee schedule from workers' comp and not the claim handling procedures. Those were the big changes.
All right, any questions about the substitute before we adopt it? All in favor of adopting the substitute, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, now you can go on with the rest of your presentation.
Ms. Phelps.
All right, thank you. My name is Amy Phelps, and I currently work for the National Insurance Crime Bureau. I'm a special agent assigned to Kentucky. Prior to this assignment, I worked and retired from the Louisville Metro Police Department. And as a violent crime detective, I was assigned to the homicide units and special victims unit. When I retired, I began a career in insurance fraud investigations. First for a member company, I was in their special investigations unit, and now I'm with NICB, where I collect information and prepare multi-carrier, multi-claim investigations. Most of what I encounter in Kentucky is medical fraud investigations. Never did I imagine that my former world in violent crime investigations would intersect and cross so many paths with my current world. I'll explain. So I think it's very important to explain that there's a very intricate, organized criminal fraud ring that moves and pushes medical insurance fraud in our state. These criminal fraud rings include the medical providers that detail pain clinics, diagnostic centers, marketers, solicitors, attorneys, administrative billers, insureds, and violent street gangs. So it's important to note that since 2012 is when Kentucky started having direct connections with this type of fraud from Florida providers. This criminal ring for fraud introduces a very dangerous component into our communities due to the large financial profit from this fraud. All participants in these claims are paid for their part. It's a kickback piece. Multiple and small and large scale investigations that I am involved with and have been involved with detail criminal ring fraud participants that reveal inflated billing practices, billing for services that aren't provided, and broad cover pain prescriptions. In these questionable claim investigations, most of these participants have either minor soreness or no injuries at all. The crime ring is fueled by these kickbacks and the cash participation, and in turn, these prescribed narcotics are funneled into our communities through the gang participants. Fraud has a desperate effect in our Kentucky communities. Many times these rings are working under the direction of these participants from other states such as Florida, Georgia, Michigan. As a lifelong proud Kentuckian and multiple policyholder myself, like all of you, we are the insurance carriers and we pay for the effect of this crime in our state and the fraud. My investigations have identified multiple schemes for medical fraud, whether it be stage collisions, cause collisions, purposeful cause collisions, and paper collisions that are just made up stories. They can drive an insured from a parking lot, very low impact, minimal damage collision to being the recipient of over 200 pain pills that same day. I think this bill is a first step in combating these issues, and I appreciate your time.
So I do have a motion from Representative Pollock on the bill as amended by the committee substitute. I've got a second from Representative Lockett. We do have some folks that have signed up to speak against the bill. So if they would come forward at this time, Miss Rachel Went, I think, and Robbie Herkskerman. I've probably butchered that. I apologize. If you all would introduce yourselves for the record, and then you all may proceed with your presentations.
Thank you, Chairman Meredith. We appreciate, well, my name is Robbie Hinkeybein. I'm a physical therapist and an athletic trainer within Kentucky, and I'm representing APTA Kentucky, which is our state organization for physical therapists. Furthermore, I appreciate you, Chairman, for allowing us an opportunity to attempt to mediate with some of the amendments that were brought forth with the insurance industry. And we agree, right, that the testimony of fraud and abuse is sickening to me as a citizen of the Commonwealth. However, I want to be clear, this bill does absolutely zero to prevent the fraud and abuse that was discussed, all right? What this bill does do is it takes the work comp fee schedule and it excludes certain providers versus others. It's singling out outpatient providers, whether it's a physician or a physical therapist, occupational therapist, or chiropractor, versus the hospital setting. The reason to think if this happens that payments will decrease to providers and will no longer to accept PIP in this fashion. This will not only overload the system with an influx of patients that have financial repercussions to patients on the hospital fee schedules are usually 2 to 4 times that of outpatient locations, right? We agree that this fraud should be addressed, but this bill only focuses on outpatient providers, and there's no doubt that the insurance industry's exclusion of certain providers over others was sent in a fashion hopefully for passing. Furthermore, it was spoken on charges. In regards to CMS regulations, all providers, whether hospital-based or outpatient, need to exhibit a fee schedule of charges that are the same from payer to payer. Right? We charge the same to Medicare as we charge to Anthem Blue Cross, as we charge to work comp, as we charge to auto. That does not deviate from payer to payer. Right? In an attempt to resolve this, we attempted to work with the insurance industry. And the main impetus of the bill is to decrease fraud from insurance. We tried to work with them so that they would introduce an amendment into which they would use the standard HCFA 1500 form and CPT codes required for billing, but that went nowhere with them. Also want to speak specifically for the physical therapy and our state board as well as the Department of Insurance. Our state board receives on a quarterly basis from the Kentucky Department of Insurance's on claims of fraud and material deception. Within the last 5 years, they've received 0 complaints from the Department of Insurance or the auto industry in any fraud related to a physical therapist, right? And so singling out a provider in which 0 fraud has occurred seems a little bit backwards to me. Furthermore, it does nothing to prevent. There's also some exclusion as far as when a claim may be paid within 180 days. This is difficult at times because sometimes patients will present with their PIP and sometimes with their commercial insurance, and you have to go back and get retro authorization, which decreases ability for a provider to get reimbursed. This will particularly hurt some of our rural providers that are only accessed for musculoskeletal care in a lot of our counties. And so by decreasing the fee schedule for these providers, it's going to hurt them and decrease their sustainability. Many of them are private practice small business owners. So in essence, we would like more time to work with the insurance companies to provide effective legislation that actually addresses fraud, which, let me be clear, this does 0 to address fraud, versus punitive legislation that only harms honest providers, many small businesses that each and every day act with integrity, providing solutions to better the lives of their patients and our communities in the Commonwealth. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Rachel Went. I'm the Executive Director for the Kentucky Association of Chiropractors, and here today to express our opposition to this bill. Three major concerns that we have. The first one, I'll probably reiterate a bunch of my colleagues' points here, but this bill does discriminate between providers, imposing a mandated fee schedule on some healthcare providers, like those in the private practice, while other providers remain unaffected, such as those in the hospital setting. So, as an example, you now have an MD in a hospital setting getting reimbursed a non-capped fee schedule, and an MD in private practice a capped fee schedule with the workers' comp fee schedule for the exact same services given in two different settings. It should be noted that chiropractors cannot be hired directly in a hospital setting. So essentially, this bill discriminates against the entire chiropractic profession in Kentucky, as they can only be in a private practice setting. The next point I want to make is the work comp fee schedule changes every 2 years, making financial planning difficult for healthcare providers. Implementing a mandated and capped fee schedule, this bill worsens this instability, leaving providers with even greater uncertainty about the stability of their practices when providing much needed follow-up care to patients, all while trying to keep up with the ever-rising inflation. Lastly, PIP cases are already complex, with patient representatives often holding funds that providers struggle to receive as reimbursement for their services. Many times, after patient visits the emergency room, PIP funds are frequently almost depleted before covering necessary follow-up care. This bill allows hospitals to continue this trend, then penalizes non-hospital-based healthcare providers by capping fees, which could limit patient access to necessary treatment and further reduce provider compensation, while keeping the same administrative hurdles in place. In the end, the patient loses, as their care that should be covered at a reasonable rate is now even more restrictive. We agree as well with the insurance companies in the room that there's a few outliers in every profession. However, the entire healthcare profession should not be limited in such a manner because of those few outliers. There has to be a better system in place that does not discriminate against the entire profession and place a cap on providers. Again, we agree with the fraud, waste, and abuse. Why not go after those individual providers instead of punishing everyone? So, in summary, this bill does not enhance patient care, improve healthcare efficiency, imposes unnecessary discriminatory regulations that financially burden providers, disrupt treatment, and ultimately restrict access to quality of care. So we ask for your no vote today on this bill. And let's work towards finding a better solution. Thank you.
Thank you all. I do have a couple of questions, and I don't know who those questions are going to be directed at. Representative All, I know you've got a question. I know you do, Representative Lockett. Representative All, are you for the main panel or this panel? I think the main. Okay. Representative Lockett, go ahead with your question for this panel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know this is a difficult issue, and it's one that's very important and one that we probably kind of behind the eight ball on in terms of really trying to tackle it. Right. But my question for both of you, and this is only because I don't know, so this is not a gotcha question at all. I just don't know. What percentage of your business comes from PIP claims?
Speaking for APTA Kentucky, that would be hard to know, right? Because I'm speaking for our entire organization, right, versus my individual business per se.
So your business, then?
I would have to look into those numbers exact. It's probably in the percentage of 6 to 10% of our business that I see in my business, but that could vary from provider to provider.
Sure. Okay. And ma'am?
Same for chiropractors. I speak for the entire profession, and it varies from chiropractor to chiropractor. I am a chiropractor, but I do not practice, so I don't have comparable numbers offhand.
Okay.
So
if you were to guess, would you say about the same range as his?
It's possible, but again, it varies from provider to provider.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Representative Camuel, I did not know you had a question too. Are you for the main panel or this one? Okay. Any other questions for the folks from the PTs and the chiropractors? Seeing none, if you all would step back, we'll bring the other panel back up for their questions. Representative All, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Chairman. PIP, Kentucky, enacted in 1975. There's some good things in this bill. There's some things that I don't agree with, but got to take it all encompassing, yes or no, right? So I guess my question or comment is $10,000 in 1975 is nowhere near $10,000 today. If we're going to do PIP reform legislation, why don't we take an all-encompassing approach, index this to inflation, You know, that'd be about $60,000 today for a PIP claim. Why aren't we doing that?
If I could wave my wet magic wand, we'd probably go on in the other direction.
Why?
I will just say that as you do that, though, that benefit that you're providing has a cost to it, right? The premiums reflect what that coverage is. If you buy more coverage, it costs more. This is a mandatory coverage that every customer has to buy. So by waving your wand, to use the representative's terminology, you would be increasing everybody's premiums in the state by doing that. The second thing I would say is the really only saving grace for PIP in Kentucky, given that every bill is presumed reasonable under the statute, and the courts have interpreted that two ways, not just in the price, but whether it's medically necessary. So what that means is they could bill us whatever. So without any kind of medical management or cost containment, if you increased it to $60,000, you would be creating a real mess, and we would have way worse of the fraud activity that Ms. Phelps talked about all over the state. And so our only saving grace is that the limits are low, very frankly.
My completely different question is why the carve out? Why are the hospitals treated differently in this legislation versus the people that just testified?
Hospitals are highly, highly, highly regulated. There are multiple layers of regulation. The probability of accident staging or wide-scale fraud within a hospital system is so much lower than anywhere else in the state. To me, it makes sense.
I would just add one additional note. Thinking about rural Kentucky, hospitals and many communities are the providers of last resort. And so I think as we think about all of the healthcare issues that you have to do with and trying to come up with good policy, if we reduce those reimbursements to those hospitals in rural communities, that may be the difference of them closing. That's been their testimony to us and members of the General Assembly. We tried to provide a reasonable approach here. If I could just say, this bill is not perfect. I've told many of you that as I've talked to you about it. There's probably a lot more medical management that the insurers would like. There's probably a lot more people that ought to be covered maybe under the fee schedule. We are trying to take a step forward. In 50 years, I've been representing State Farm for 26. We've made no significant changes in this, and with the kind of cost inflation and fraud that we're seeing, we think we've reached a point where it's going to start having impacts on rates at a really significant level, and we've got to get ahead of it. This is the first step in that process, and we hope to engage the groups that have testified. I will just say this, the PTs have been very engaged with us. They brought us 3 issues, and we've addressed 2 of those. I can't help them on the fee schedule issue. That's sort of the point of the bill. But we've addressed the 180-day billing, and we've provided an issue if they're in a situation where there's an attorney involved. We've given them the current status quo of a 2-year statute of limitations still in the bill. So we've addressed that one. And then with the language that the chairman added in the committee substitute, it specifically makes it clear we're not adopting any kind of workers' comp claim handling procedures that would impact direct access, physician referrals, or any of that, or visit limits. We have tried to take a really reasonable approach to this and still try to make some forward progress.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Camille.
Well, actually, Rep. All asked my question, and Dustin answered it, so I'm good.
All right. Do other member, Representative Smith?
I'll be real brief, Mr. Chairman. I guess the best way to put this, I've had several calls from my physical therapy people, and I've tried to get my arms around the carve out too. First question is, do you know how much this is going to save me on my automobile insurance? That's my first question, if you have a percentage. And second of all is, if this is a 6% business to them, similar to my dentist when they all list themselves as Medicaid providers, but they don't take any appointments. What happens when your privates decide they're not going to take this anymore? What would that do to the cost and everybody going to the hospital? Is that a fair question? I mean, that's what I was asked. So I'd like to see if you have a way of telling me, first of all, maybe the cost savings that we're doing, and then second of all, the second part of that question.
Sure, I'll take the first, and then I'll let Representative Bray maybe on the second. So the premium that you pay for PIP is a portion of your overall premium, right? So there's coverage there for bodily injury. There's a portion there that's also for vehicle property damage, right, and liability. So when you think about what rates have done, I saw the other day the average price of a car in the country is $49,000. So the basket of goods that we're insuring has gone up. What we've seen in PIP, again, only because it's such a small limit, we've managed to keep that from blowing the premium up. And that was my point to Representative All's question about raising the benefits. We do not see that this will necessarily save companies significant dollars. And the reason for that is one, we may end up seeing more treatment at hospitals because of how this is set up. Again, we might be paying a little more for less fraud, quite frankly. Two, there's nothing in here that addresses how much somebody treats. So if I still want to bilk the system, I just will do it slower, right? I'll get paid less, but I'll have to have 50 visits instead of 25 or whatever to get that. And so we're not sure clearly that these changes will have any real significant impact. The hope is that by reducing the incentive for fraud, we'll stop having folks come from Florida, Michigan, come here to abuse our system that then ends up back on the ratepayers. If you want to take the hospital.
Yeah, and as far as access to care, was that your second question?
Yeah.
What happens when? So access to care is always a huge issue. We discuss it a lot in the health committee, particularly in rural Kentucky. Kind of, like Dustin had mentioned earlier, in a lot of settings, the only access to care we have is within the hospital umbrella. The standalone independent physician is kind of a thing of the past already. So if local independent physical therapy groups decide to not do PIP claims, I mean, just the reality is they will have to go into the hospital system.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, just one follow-up to that, Representative. It's important to understand how the workers' comp fee schedule, and that's all we're adopting, not the other pieces around it, how it's updated. Every 2 years, they update it, and they look at, what are the costs. So in the last, this is all I can really speak to, from 22 to 24, no CPT code on the fee schedule was decreased. They had an increase, a cap of no more than 7.5, and that was spread across. So some codes went up 7.5, some less, but there were increases in that fee schedule. And the idea is to keep that fee schedule available so that people will use it. And you've probably heard me give this example before over the years, but Medicaid sort of pays down here, then Medicare, and then commercial insurance, then the workers' comp fee schedule, and then PIP is as high as I can reach, right? And so that's sort of the reimbursement level. So I'm not going to tell you it's not going to be less. It probably will than them billing PIP, but it is a more than fair fee schedule when you compare it to commercial, Medicare, Medicaid. And I think the way they go about doing it in an open setting that comes before the Administrative Reg Review Committee and goes through the Administrative Reg process makes that an open opportunity for providers to provide that input that, hey, this isn't enough. They have that window into that process.
Representative Pollock.
Just a comment, Mr. Chairman. Representative All, your question, basically, the $10,000 is obviously a state law mandate kind of amount, but also everybody has the option to purchase extra additional PIP coverage. And that's something to be obviously made mention here, and that's an important part of it as well. So, and then two, we hope that we presume that with the fee schedule in this, that there would be more services provided to the insured and to our constituents. So that's something else to kind of to recognize here in this conversation. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions from other members of the committee? We do have a motion and a second on the bill as amended by the committee substitute. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Representative All?
Yes.
Representative Ballman? Aye. Representative Bray?
Aye.
Representative Camuel?
Yes.
Representative Klein's?
I'm going to have to take a pass. Thank you.
Representative Duvall?
Explain my vote.
Go ahead.
I'm going to take a pass today. While I wholeheartedly support the intent of this bill to decrease fraud and abuse, I do have some concern about potential unintended consequences on providers, so I'm going to need to investigate a little bit more.
Representative Gooch?
Can I explain my vote, Mr. Chairman?
Go right ahead.
I think my first bill in 1996, one of the first, was an attempt to undo the actual drafting error, is what I call it, in the original PIP bill that actually said that any claim presented was presumed reasonable. That was terrible law, and we've tried to really solve that problem ever since I've been here to no avail. And I have in the past have tried lots of ways to settle this issue with PIP, one including a fee schedule in the past. Lots of my bills were not successful. Some were. I had two that were taken all the way to the Kentucky Supreme Court related to PIP. One was found unconstitutional, and the other one was found constitutional. So I have tried to do this many times before with some limited success, but I can tell that it takes a really good representative to get this job done, and so I want to commend Representative Brave for that. So with that, I vote yes.
Representative Gordon,
Yes.
Representative Grossberg,
Permission to explain my vote?
Go ahead.
I'm going to be a pass today. I had received a good number of emails and texts opposing the bill. In private conversations, I feel that most of my concerns, if not all, were addressed, but it is clear to me based upon the testimony today that we still have a conflicting set of facts and a conflicting set of interpretations as to what the bill does and does not do. And I'm not prepared yet to commit to a yes, but I am largely compelled in that direction, so I'm going to pass for today.
Representative Hampton,
Yes.
Representative Hancock,
I'd like to explain my vote.
Go right ahead.
Being in the insurance industry for 23 years, I've seen the fraud multiple times. I think that personal injury is something that definitely needed to have reform as a consumer protection side, rate side, and I know that this is asking a lot of the good actors on the PT and the chiropractor side to make the sacrifices for the betterment of all. I appreciate those sacrifices. I think that we all have a voice, but we don't have to be against each other on this. We can come to the middle and everybody kind of give a little bit to make a big impact, and that's why I'm a yes. Thank you.
Representative Heverin,
Yes.
Representative Lewis,
Yes.
Representative Lockett,
Aye.
Representative McPherson,
Yes.
Representative Pollock,
Yes.
Representative Rudy, Representative Smith, Chair Meredith.
Yes. And House Bill 416, as amended by House Committee Substitute, does pass with favorable expression. Same should on the House floor. Thank you all for being here and for your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
Representative Rudy, do you have a vote to record? Any other members need recognition for any votes to be recorded? Seeing none, that does end our business for the day. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion from Representative Lockett, a second. Representative McPherson. All in favor say aye.